Hola, mi nombre es Julio San José de Rodríguez de La Paz. I don't know, I'm joking. Uh, FrogBear. Rami. Yeah, that's what I call myself. Back at it again. Should probably make myself a bit smaller. Yeah, okay, so the synchronicities keep happening to me over and over again. And, I want to wear the beanie now. I don't know why. Oh, yeah, I'll wear the beanie in memory of Tim Pool because this guy doesn't ever actually, I think, accurately portray any of this stuff. Um, yeah. So synchronicities. How did this end up? I talked about Occupy Wall Street, right, in my previous video, and then I guess the universe always keeps on giving. This video showed up. Well, three of them to be specific. Thanks for sure. Like, I like the dude's beard. It makes me miss my beard very much. Makes me regret shaving a whole lot. Should have kept the mustache at least. You know what I'm saying? But how should I say this? So yeah, hella crazy how me talking about like Occupy Wall Street. This video gets posted to one of the. It says it on the Telegram group where I got this from. Hold on. Turn off media viewer. I got it from TikTok news. Yeah, lol. Oh my god, he gets his news from TikTok. What a total Chad, total alpha male, dude. Oh man. Either way, yeah. I think I'll let the clip speak for itself for the beginning part of it. So yeah, for context, this is Occupy Wall Street. I'm assuming they're in front of New York, and this was like, I never saw this specific clip, but I saw a bunch of other clips that were just on the internet of people kind of, talking. To me, it was crazy to start seeing it on the news, but hold on. How do I?
Every dollar I earn, I get to spend 45 cents. The government spends 55 cents. So the government's already taken more than half my money. I don't know how much more.
So where do you stand concerning our...
I don't lobby anybody.
Where do you stand concerning our plight?
I feel for your plight. I wish that we had a more vibrant economy. The problem is the government is taxing and regulating the economy to death. The government is not letting capitalism work. You guys are protesting all the bailouts on Wall Street. I was with you. I was against the bailouts even before they were proposed. I knew these banks were going to fail. I wanted them to fail. I didn't want the government to bail them out. That's not capitalism. Capitalism would have let the banks fail.
That's actually a great point that I wanted to bring up, was how the media was the main perpetrator of how these bailouts were sold, right? Because essentially it was, in a game of information warfare, it has to be somebody to disseminate what the opinion should be. And in this case, they handled that by saying, we need these bailouts. These bailouts are necessary because without them, the entire economy would crash, this and that. There's a variety of like lip service that we were given. But what really pissed people off, and something that's not said here, is the amount of layoffs that they had. Not only that, but affecting just thousands of people just because they got laid off. And the majority of that money that was supposed to go to some of these employees just ended up going back into the pockets of the upper echelon of management, I guess. That's not mentioned in this, is kind of why I'm saying it now.
A lot of people on Wall Street would have lost their jobs if we had capitalism.
Well,
Instead,
the United States, if that happened,
it would have been in better shape. We would have taken the medicine.
The world economy would have survived.
Without the government bailouts, absolutely. The economy is in trouble because of the government.
I'm here. I've been observing this for a few days. I'm actually from a libertarian mindset. I know your background, Paul, and a lot of that sort of stuff. I've actually been amazed how much overlap I saw. I saw a lot of end the Fed stuff. I saw a lot of things that actually overlap where I thought I was walking into a leftist movement. Do you see this as a left-wing movement, or do you see this more as a populist, apolitical movement?
Well, I think that people, especially young people, have a right to be pissed off because
I'm
they're
paying
getting
Social Security. I'm paying all this stuff.
Well, not only that. Look, we've sold the young generation short.
Yeah.
We've put them through these government schools. We've loaded them up with debt. One of the problems people want is the forgiveness of the student loans.
And this is where I just thought the synchronicity just completed itself, because I talked about my experience and just seeing how my senior class got put. I'm not saying that's exclusive, but I'm just the way things lay out. And I'm glad he brings it up because the way I'm assuming this executive understands it is when you create debt, you essentially create all of this fake money, and in the creation of debt, you have these I don't know what aspect of the financial industry this is, but where you thus create more value from debt that exists. I'm not sure how that works, but that is something that does occur.
Why are there all these student loans? It's because the government guaranteed them. If the government minded its own business, then nobody could get a student loan.
Well, there's never been a monopoly without government involvement.
No, but my point is, if it wasn't for the government,
Yeah.
college would be cheap. The tuitions would be low. It's only because the government subsidizes it and guarantees the loans. But who gets the shaft here? It's the kids. The colleges get all the money, and they stick the kids with the bill. They graduate with these worthless degrees with $100,000 or more in debt, and they can't get a job. And if they get a job, they're paying massive taxes. They're paying Social Security taxes to support a generation that voted in this Ponzi scheme before any of these people were born. They're paying income taxes. If there's anything left, they got to pay back their student loans, and they can't even discharge them in bankruptcy, and if they die, their parents are stuck with them. So I think,
It's funny, like, my mom was somebody who was stuck in that situation with my oldest sister's student debt, where it's kind of abstract to see it now, but instead of going after my sister, they started going after my mom. And that was very interesting, and it was because the kind of loan she had was before the government subsidized everyone else's loan. So, like, I'm guessing it was purely based on the contract that she had entered, but it was weird to see that.
of course, the government did it.
Well,
But it's not all the blame of the government.
Well, who else did it?
You
Who
guys
guaranteed
work together. You guys are part of this
No.
team.
Wall Street is. I agree.
Who lobbies?
No, you're right.
lobbies government?
But why are there lobbyists? Why are lobbyists successful? Because government has power and influence. The problem is the government. If the government couldn't dole out special favors and subsidies, there would be no lobbyists. So what you've got to do is take the power away from government
Then there'd be
and
no
bring it back to
control
the
at all.
people.
Then you guys
And that's a very dangerous idea, especially when you're looking at situations with like Nancy Pelosi and her husband, how there is this pseudo form of insider information going on. But we all, but now it's a thing where people are paying attention to it. But for years, this has gone on. For years, there has probably been a lot of this insider trading of knowing that, hey, these certain firms are about to get this money, so their stock is about to be projected upwards, da 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 da. I don't know. This is why Occupy for me was just such a very interesting issue, because I learned all about this issue from the email leak situation. So learning the economy, the lobbyist groups, the political theater that we get to play, like I still remember like some of the oddest things that I learned during this era was that world leaders pay attention to how they handshake one another, and like it's important whose palm is on the outside because it'll demonstrate some form of like, I wish I could assume that this was all fake, but after reading a lot of the weird medieval fantasy stuff that I read, I kind of lean towards believing it now, because I don't know, just look at the media, just look at the way that they hold these events and ceremonies. Either way, let's go back.
No, then we'd have freedom. Then we'd be a wealthy country like we used to be before the government came in and screwed it all up.
TikTok. Kind of funny that TikTok is like now kind of like what was it? Somebody had mentioned that like TikTok just essentially took over what Vine used to be.
We created the wealthiest society that the world had ever seen. The standard of living, you go back to 1950, the average American had a standard of living nobody can match anywhere in the world. That's not true today, because we don't lead the world in freedom. We lead the world now in big government and regulation and central banking. That is the problem. We have to go back to the Constitution. We have to go back to our roots. Of course.
I really do like this video so much because he really brings it home to there had to be some form of authority that could wave its magic wand around and push forward a lot of these ideas unrelentlessly. And I don't know, the way I see it, not many people put that much thought into it, considering, I think he brings it up in this clip with lobbyist groups.
But why? Well, because no, but the government made it so expensive to hire Americans. That's the problem. All the taxes, all the laws, minimum wage, occupational licensing, payroll taxes, unemployment taxes, all the potential litigation. The government has made it so expensive and so risky to hire. Look, I hire people, right? And a lot of times I'm reluctant to hire people. I try to avoid it because the problem is the government makes it too expensive. I know a lot of small businessmen that do everything they can not to hire people because they don't want the headache from the government. They don't want the legal liability. They don't want the government dragging them into court and suing them because they don't think they hired somebody the right way, or maybe they fired.
And my microphone is all hella far away from me. And that is something that I always told people, that this whole issue with jobs is a very conflated issue. Like, if we, how do I say this? Because the way I always, I can't remember how I would find myself in this argument, but anytime this argument came up of immigration and us having a problem with like H1, those foreign visas for workers to come over here, I always brought it up to them like these are two separate issues, because one of them is a skill gap issue. So that relates more to the value of the individual and their incentive for taking on that job, while the other one is like the only person incentivized for non-skilled workers would be corporations who largely hire them under the veils of their subsidiaries. And the reason why they would go through the process of hiring them is because they don't actually have to hire them. What really happens is they'll hire these people at like $2 an hour, $3 an hour. But the reason why they're incentivized to do that is because of the hassle it goes to through hiring someone through legal means, because you get into Social Security, you get into all of these other forms of government that you have to comply with. So they're kind of strong-armed in a position where don't hire new people, don't let new people enter the workforce, and they put these barriers of entry for a lot of people. So essentially, but a lot of the bottom tier work, if that's how it is for hiring new people, like I know somebody who works at a food processing plant, and he told me the hoops he had to go through just to go from one position of the company to go to another position of the company. And he said that even having new hires for positions is even difficult for them. I don't know. It really goes to show why we're in the situation that we're in now, but there's also more of a cultural thing where it's more popular to be a drug dealer, it's more popular to do all these other forms of scamming than it is to make money in any more legal fashion, I guess. But that's just the culture thing. That's not necessarily an issue conflated with the economy. But bringing it back full circle is having a social security number makes it more difficult and not makes it more difficult, right? That's what allows you a job here in the States. But I think somebody's outside. No, I think I'm probably being fucked with, because I have headphones on, so I'm like not too sure. What was it? Essentially, yeah, having a social security number makes it more difficult for you to get a lower end job, because there is no incentive for these companies or these organizations to hire you. While if they get Jose across the border, they can not only pay him way below minimum wage, they don't have to go through any paperwork. It's just like, hey, show up at this time.
Them for the wrong reason. The government is looking over the shoulder of every businessman, and it is hard enough to start a business without the government complicating it with taxes and regulations. When people start a small business, they put it all on the line. It's their money. They have to pay everybody first. They pay their employees, they pay their rent. They only make money if there's something left over. And the government makes it very hard, so people don't start businesses, and if they do, they try not to hire people because they can't take the cost. And if businesses are moving their jobs, I recently set up a bank in the Caribbean. I'm moving some of my employees to Singapore. I would rather keep all my employees here, but I don't have a choice. The government is making me uncompetitive. The rules and regulations are so expensive that the only way I can stay in business is to move part of my business to other countries.
And that's just an issue that he's talking about in 2010, right? Where, needing skilled labor, et cetera, et cetera. But moving part of his business outside of the country, I think he already talked about it because I walked away.
But I would rather do all my business here if it weren't for the government.
Peter, put the mic in front of him when you speak.
I think it's the corporations that get greedy and decide that, why we pay someone $8 an hour if we can get someone for 50 cents an hour in India? And that's why
it
we move over, not
total
because of
productivity.
government.
First of all, the corporations are just people. It's people that own stock, right? And if you go back to the 1950s, for example, America paid the highest wages in the world, much higher than we do today. Yet we produced the cheapest stuff. Our products cost less than products produced anywhere else in the world, and so we sold them all around the world. Why?
And yet people forget that there was an event here in America where all of that manufacturing capabilities, all of those machineries, all of that equipment was shipped overseas so that this could all work other places. So we had a willing cooperation from these companies that most recently, I remember somebody who I know very personally who works inside of a metal factory. All of his business, the entire business was moved to China. The only person that got to maintain a job for the rest of the moving forward were the people who knew how to operate the machines and were the people who knew how to train other people on these machines. Those are the only people that got to keep their job, and not only that, they got very cozy. They got very cozy jobs at China, and this all happened like a few years ago. And this was under Trump's administration. So now I don't know, just things I witnessed firsthand, anecdotally. I don't know. At least I just pay attention.
How was it that we could pay the highest wages but produce the lowest cost stuff? It was because we had more capital. We had more capital because we had lower taxes and fewer regulations. So we gave our workers tools and machines to make them more productive. We don't have that anymore. We are not as productive as other countries. That is the problem. But you have to ask yourselves why. How did we have such a huge lead, and how did we blow it? What did we do wrong?
I like how he's asking the question of like, where are these events? Where could we point to show and have proof of this is where it went wrong, this is where we fucked up, this is where everything started changing, this is when people started getting bought out, etc., etc. I don't even remember. I think I do remember there being a story that even said that there was somebody who overturned the ability to see who sponsored who. But donations.
And what we did wrong was more government, more rules, more regulations, more taxes that made us less competitive. That's why the jobs are gone.
So hold on. Look. Is it safe to say that you're the only one here who's anti-government?
I don't know. There are probably a lot of people here who are. All right, how many people here blame the problems on the government?
I think he knows something that he's not leading on. I think I think some people take these roles where they're on the inside, right? If he owns a business, if he works inside of these companies, I don't know, I look at that face and I just wonder, like, what do you know? And why are you... He's very gung-ho with getting this issue out there, and he's very adamant with trying to wake up whoever he can speak to. And I think this is very great because I don't know what other people believe, but I tend to lean on the side that I don't know, was 2012 a very special event or a marker for something to occur? And from what we saw in terms of leaks, in terms of the efforts in I don't know. It all depends on how you see it, but I saw a very interesting civil war against the people. really begin to cement itself and make itself, I don't know. The way I look at it is it just got very real very quickly at 2012, especially after Occupy, especially after it stopped being an issue of class and it started being more of a racial issue. Because you just have to know about color revolutions, and you have to understand like how the destabilization of a country goes into. This definitely reminds me of that CNN interview with John Bolton, and he's at CNN and he's all like, "Oh, I've initiated a couple internal coups," and but not here though. I was like, "What the dude? You don't need to add that." Either way.
Partially.
Would you count the Federal Reserve?
Yes,
with the
the
mic-
Federal, yes, definitely the Federal Reserve. It's a big
Talk
part of the
about that a
problem.
little bit.
Yeah, well, it's the Federal Reserve that creates all the inflation that destroys the value.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Keep in mind, I know the definition of recession has just changed. So he clearly, this is a video from 2011, so he's clearly not in the know of the change of the definition, so don't worry.
Value of our savings and our wages. It's the Federal Reserve that inflated the housing bubble and the stock market bubble before it.
Every bubble.
Well, yeah. What's this?
Can you speak? You're in this movie, right?
In this movie? I don't know. I don't know if I'm in that movie.
Yeah, Plunder, you're in this movie.
I am?
Danny Schechter's film.
I don't know.
I thought that was really interesting how this lady just comes out of nowhere and she's like, "You're in this film. You're one of the people inside of this movie." And I'm guessing Plunder is one of those movies that's like anti-corporation, anti-executive, da 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 da. There were a lot of these very interesting documentaries that came out at that time.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm in it. I get in a lot of documentaries, so I could be in there.
What do you think of Wall Street as a crime?
If you're
Well,
doing
look,
such a good job,
I think-
why is America going down?
It is going down. It's going down.
I thought you one percenters are doing such a good
No.
job.
Well, some of the 1%ers who are working on Wall Street, who are getting their money based on government bailouts and subsidies, that is the problem. They should be allowed to go broke. But there are a lot of people
Go woke, go broke.
who are businessmen who don't get a government subsidy, who are trying to overcome enormous government regulatory hurdles and high taxes. You know, they deserve that money. But I'm with you on Wall Street. Nobody deserves a bailout. No company is too big to fail.
And this is where we were in 2012. Like as an entirety, as a whole, after experiencing what happened in 2008 and moving forward, or I think 2010 is when all this happened. But when do you believe the Great Awakening happened? I believe that it happened around 2010, 2012. There was so much going on in the back end, like that I don't think people fully can grasp what really had occurred during this time. I largely think this because of seeing how the world and the paradigm went forward, right? Seeing as how our reality was shaped from 2012 and on, it was very clear that it was a very peculiar kind of agenda, and it just moved along forward. I don't know, like I wish I could point to something specific. But, you know, just looking at how I always want to point to Doctor Who, but I feel like I make that reference way too much. But seeing how that show declined towards the end. But it wasn't just that. It was just a bunch of TV shows. Seeing how our video game companies were being bought out by China. Seeing how the industry itself was getting more pay to play and like trying to milk players for their money, and just seeing how things moved in such a generic, bland version of things. Because nobody's going to tell me that like Call of Duty after 3 was organic to any degree. And it wasn't just began to be a copy-paste syndrome situation. And then kind of playing Counter-Strike, loot boxes became such a huge and rampant thing, it wasn't even funny. Essentially, there were people who get to decide how industries get to move forward and what sort of narrative, what sort of thing they're promoting. And seeing the way LGBTQ kind of popped off, and seeing all of these branches of sexualities, exploration of the human desire or whatever, that's the way I saw it. I'm like, you're merely playing with the human psyche and the human what do you call it? The human experience. Like that's all you're really doing. How all this ends is at the detriment of like psychological health. Like I don't. There's a reason why there's a reason why. Well, I don't know. I could say that, but then the Jesuits kind of destroyed my argument. I'm going to continue the video now.
If someone on Wall Street gets in trouble, they should lose their money. That's how capitalism works. You take the good and the bad.
Why there's 16 million people out of work?
Well, the main reason is because the government, through the Federal Reserve, is bleeding Main Street dry to siphon money to the speculative activities going on here on Wall Street.
Why
A lot.
does the 1% get income going up dramatically over the last 20 years?
For the reasons.
While the average income of the average guy gone down dramatically.
Yeah, it's going down because of big government. The government is undermining the productivity of our country. Look, you're not gonna bring the poor up by bringing the rich down, right? You don't make the poor richer by making the rich poorer. You need rich people to invest their money to grow the economy, to create the products, to create the businesses.
I think what he's trying to say there is the idea guys. You know, like the guys who innovate for the industry. I think he doesn't really conflate the issue really well here. But then again, who's he playing for? I wish I knew more about this, like specific of that, because I'm like that guy in the middle. I'm like, I don't know, dog. You saying all the nice things, but I don't know.
Create the jobs. If you take away the money, you get less. It's not nobility.
Lords and ladies
No.
to take care of us.
Lords and ladies, that's from government. Right, I'm talking about people earning their own money from their own hard work.
You identify as a 1%er?
Excuse me?
You identify as a 1%?
Well, I'm in the 1%.
You identify as
For the purpose of this protest.
I understand. Excuse me. We cannot have acts of violence or violations of
I think it was the wind. I think it was the
Please.
wind.
Okay, if you feel like that you're being pushed.
if you feel like you're being attacked, just let me know. Either way. I just wanted to show this video just because of how the video was just kind of put before me. Yeah, it's a Telegram crew called the TikTok News. Either way, talking about Occupy Wall Street. I don't know. It all depends on what people believe about the Great Awakening, the converging of timelines, Project Looking Glass, the Mayan calendar. There's a variety of things you can just insert here and assume X, Y, or Z over these things. But I'm always going back to the issue of there being a broader understanding of the infrastructure that we live in. Because I feel like a lot of people, when we're born into this world, we really don't consider what we really participate in, and we just kind of willingly go along with things. Kind of one of the, what was it? It was one of those new YouTube channels, or at least there was a new series of videos that got recommended to me where it was a dude asking like, oh, how many stars are on the United States flag? And like people are just like 39, 29, and I'm like, huh? One of my other favorite questions was, what state is Utah in? And just people's responses really begin to really make me worry. And this goes back to like, I think the issues that the Western world is currently facing are very unique in the way that they're designed only to be self-sabotaging to the individual, but once you see out of it, it's kind of very difficult to, I don't know. Either way, this was episode with Ramirez, your boy. Stay tuned next time for, I don't know,